Tas buvo prieš 30 metų, tai buvo vaikai maži už rankučių atlėkėm visi ir papuolėm Vilniuje ant Ukmergės kelio, toliau prasimušti nebuvo kur. O visas buvo matymas, lėktuvus matėm, gėlės barstančius visus matėm jau iš tos vietos. Bet aš pagal įspūdį, aš nepatikėjau, kad tiek žmonės susirinks, tiek užpildys kelią.
Netikėjom, kad tiek galim visi susitelkti ir tikrai pajauti tą jėgą, tvirtybę, kai šalia petis petin stovi su pažįstamu, nepažįstamu, taip imi už rankos jauti ir tą tikrai persiduoda iš rankos į ranką.
On August 18th through 20th, 2019, in order to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way, vintage vehicle enthusiasts from Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, driving their historic cars, repeated the historic Baltic Way on the Vilnius-Riga-Tallinn route. This vintage car tour was not only the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way, but also the first joint event of vintage car clubs of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia that has happened since the restoration of independence of the three states. Noteworthy is that the participants of the event drove along the entire authentic way, not missing any road or town through which the thread of liberty naturally stretched 30 years ago and which still inspires freedom defenders around the world. A total of 205 historical exhibits took part in the extraordinary event, attracting the attention of media from all around the world. There were 53 vehicles from Lithuania, 33 from Latvia, 113 from Estonia, 3 from Poland, 2 from Belarus, and 1 from Finland. Depending on the age of the vehicles, the participants could take a partial route. They could choose any part of the road, joining the march from Vilnius, Panevėžys, Pasvalys, Riga, Valmiera, or Viljandi, and traveling as far as the participants' car's capacity or driver's desire allowed. On Sunday, August 18th, as many as 150 historic vehicles gathered for the start of the Baltic Way Vintage Car Tour on Cathedral Square. The oldest car to participate in the exhibition in Vilnius was the Ford T Touring, built in 1921. And the oldest motorcycle, built in 1928, was an Indian Scout 101. There were heavy-duty vehicles as well, the Icarus 55 Lux, manufactured in 1972. After singing the anthems of the 3 Baltic countries, Egidijus Einaris, the president of Antique Automobile Club Klasika, began the official part of the event. He introduced the participants of the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way, as well as the idea and goals of the tour. The chairman of the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania, Viktoras Pranckietis, the ambassador of Estonia to Lithuania, Jana Vanaveski, and the chairman of the Latvian People's Front, Romualdas Ražukas, delivered welcoming speeches. The honorable guests also presented the national flags to the drivers of the 3 countries, which were carried along the entire historical Baltic Way from Vilnius to Tallinn. The gathered people were greeted by Agris Šmits, the chairman of the Latvian Antique Automobile Club, and Vieko Praks, the representative of the Estonian Antique Vehicles Club. All speakers were awarded with commemorative Baltic Way medals by the Klasika Club. After the official part of the event, there was a performance by the modern folklore group Navija from Biržai, and the historical photos of the Baltic Way were shown. The heart of the Lithuanian capital was just the beginning of a long way. At exactly noon, the convoy of vintage cars left Cathedral Square and started the historic Baltic Way tour, Vilnius-Riga-Tallinn. The participants of this extraordinary event opened their thick road books and, after passing the impressive Road of Freedom Memorial Wall monument, moved towards Panevėžys.
Jeigu galvot plačiau, tai yra nacionalinis pasididžiavimas tuo, ką mes darėme ir ką mes bandom dabar atkartoti. Aišku, taip nepavyksta tai, kai buvo prieš 30 metų, bet mes stengiamės. Tai yra širdis įdėta į tą 30-metį ir į tą patį Baltijos kelią įdėta. Tai niekur nedingsi. Tai yra mūsų pasididžiavimas. O ypač tai sugraudina tas dalykas, kai važiuojant keliu pamatai žmonės stovinčiais su vėliavomis, kai Baltijos kelyje, susikabinusius rankomis ir įvairių tautybių, ir įvairaus amžiaus, ir vaikai, ir netgi tie žmonės, tie jaunuoliai, kurie dar buvo negimę tuo metu, kai vyko tikrasis Baltijos kelias.
Although the length of a large column of vintage cars and motorcycles was difficult to measure, and they moved at a speed of only 55 kilometers per hour, the participants of the Baltic Way reached Panevėžys without any major faults. Panevėžys greeted the participants of the extraordinary tour, marking the extraordinary date as good friends they have not seen for a long time. Dressed in national bands and national flags, the people of Panevėžys invited the participants to the Baltic Way commemoration concert. Panevėžys mayor, Rytis Mykolas Ratskauskis, a member of the Antique Automobile Club Klasika, Alfredas Zigmantis, chairman of the Latvian Antique Car, Agris Šmits, and representative of the Estonian Antique Car Club, Vieko Praks, greeted both the participants and all the people who had gathered. By the way, the participants of the tour evaluated the reception of the capital of Aukštaitija as the most impressive, most sincere, and national in the whole tour, commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way. Many residents of Panevėžys gathered at the event had an opportunity to visit the exhibition of ancient cars, listen to the folk band Pulkelis, visit the chapel Nevėžis, and watch the performance of folk dance group Grandinėlė. Military equipment was shown by the soldiers of the King Mindaugas Hussar Battalion, who also provided food to hungry visitors of the event and the participants of the tour. The businessmen of Panevėžys also contributed to the initiative. Alfredas and Andras Zigmantis, members of Klasika, organized and financed the ceremony, the concert, and the catering of the participants. It should be noted that this was one of the longest stops in Lithuania. The participants of the tour stayed for 2 hours only in Vilnius and the city called the capital of Aukštaitija.
Jaučiuosi pakiliai, tikrai pakiliai jaučiuosi. Prisimenam tuos 30 metų atgal, kada buvom jauni, kada ėjom į kelią, kada stovim susikibę rankom ir pravažiuoti visą tą kelią, pamatyti, kur driekėsi kelias. Tikrai yra nuostabu ir malonu. Žmonės mojuoja, žmonės susirinkę su vėliavom. Ypatingai įstrigo atmintyje Lietuvoje, ypatingai Pasvalio rajone. Labai daug žmonių mūsų sutinka, palydi, džiaugsmingai mojuoja, su vėliavom stovi, tai yra nuostabu.
Jie pasiruošę, jie laukia.
Taip, jie mūsų laukia.
After having a taste of soldier's porridge and some rest, the participants of the 30th anniversary tour of the Baltic Way said goodbye to Panevėžys and headed towards the border with Latvia. It was a great pleasure that in Panevėžys, 15 more cars and motorcycles joined the historic car convoy. The farewell ceremony showed that the spirit of the Baltic Way was still alive. People were lining up in a live tunnel and wishing good luck on the way that had only started. The finish was still many miles away. And, without even being asked, the song "The Baltic is Awaking," the anthem of this extraordinary event, was played. After having driven the 45 kilometers separating Panevėžys from Pasvalys, the convoy of vintage vehicles drove into Pasvalys. The cars and motorcycles lined up on the square near Pasvalys Sports School. Gintautas Gegužinskas, the mayor of Pasvalys district, and Egidijus Einaris, the president of the Antique Automobile Club Klasika, welcomed the participants of the Baltic Way tour and the residents of the city. Alfredas Zigmantas, a member of Klasika Club, thanked the residents of Pasvalys for their warm and sincere welcome and invited them to enjoy the exhibition of vintage cars. During the exhibition, Enrikas Balčiūnas, the singer of the rock band Laiptė, performed. After a brief commemoration of the Baltic Way, the participants of the vintage car tour said goodbye to the residents of Pasvalys and made their way to Riga, and it seemed that the sound of this extraordinary event had already struck every Lithuanian home. With flags and various musical instruments, people went to the road, greeting the passing convoy of the Baltic Way with songs and broad smiles. Each day, there were more and more people on the roadsides. Adults and children, old and young, the people went to commemorate their freedom and the Baltic Way symbolizing it. The first day of the march of the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way ended at dusk, around 9 p.m., when the participants arrived at the Riga Motor Museum. Free tent space and parking for the night were offered to all within the territory of the museum and access to the Berkiniki racetrack. Some of the participants slept with their four-wheeled friends, while others chose hotels. Here, the first day of the Vintage Car Tour Baltic Way ended. The first third was overcome. There were going to be hundreds of kilometers and adventures ahead in the good company of like-minded people. On the beautiful morning of the second day, all the participants of the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way moved from the Riga Motor Museum towards the center of Riga as a large convoy, exactly at the scheduled time. The Horch 853, that had become the Latvian flag bearer, began its journey on the march and was joined by several unique World War II cars. The participants were joined not only by them, but also by a dozen Soviet and Western cars and motorcycles. The flawless work of the police and the respect paid to the parade of the vintage cars by local road users was simply astonishing. In just a few minutes, all the exhibits of the historical car convoy of the Baltic Way were lined up for an exhibition at the symbol of Latvian freedom in the center of Riga. Even though Monday is a working day, the exclusive event attracted a large number of spectators. The visitors of the exhibition admired not only the historical vehicles, but also the wonderful photo exhibition dedicated to the historical Baltic Way. It is an interesting fact that for Latvian vintage car enthusiasts, the exhibition at the Freedom Monument was important and significant, not only as a part of the history of the Baltic Way. Although the Latvian Ancient Car Club had existed since 1972, no vintage car show had been held there until then. Thus, it may be stated that this was another historic and memorable event for Latvian fans of vintage vehicles.
Надо напомнить про ту ситуацию, которая была 30 лет назад. Потому что в основном те, которые мы участвуем в этом мероприятии сегодня, мы были в тот раз 30 лет назад и стояли в этом пути. Но есть молодежь, которая сейчас выросла, она не знает, они не понимают, почему мы там стояли, зачем это вообще нужно было. И как вообще возможно было в 1989 году, когда не было ни Фейсбука, ни мобильных связей, собрать столько людей в одну колонну с одной целью. Это надо говорить, потому что это история наших всех стран. Сейчас нам, может, не надо больше стоять и думать о том, что на нас кто-то нападет. Но мы можем дружить вместе в хобби, мирных обстоятельствах, делать общие мероприятия и делать это свободно, не боясь о том, что нас кто-то остановит за то, что мы едем не на таких машинах или что мы не так говорим, что сейчас мы можем свободно это все делать.
At the end of the exhibition in the city center, the vintage cars and motorcycles said goodbye to the capital of Latvia and moved again along the historic Baltic Way.
Viva Estonia! Viva Lithuania!
The next stop was Cēsis. Very few participants in the tour knew, nor suspected, that this city had played an extraordinary role in the history of the Baltic Way 30 years ago. On August 12, 1989, in Cēsis, there was held a meeting of the Baltic Council, during which the leaders of the Lithuanian Sąjūdis, the Popular Front of Estonia and Latvia, met. They then signed a protocol on the organization of a mass political action by the people of the three Baltic states aimed to condemn the Molotov and Ribbentrop Pact. This event was called the Baltic Way. After having arrived in Cēsis and lined up the vintage vehicles on the town square, the participants of the tour had the opportunity to have some rest and a meal. While the residents and visitors of the town enjoyed the exhibition of the historic cars, the Latvian soldiers treated the participants to dinner. After a satisfying meal and a short rest, the vintage car enthusiasts once again set foot on the road, according to the timetable and route shown in the road books. At the end of the second day of the tour, a festive convoy of exceptional vehicles arrived at the border of Latvia and Estonia. As a matter of fact, there was some misunderstanding on the way out of Cēsis. After the flag bearers of the tour got lost, the convoy of vintage cars was separated. However, near the Estonian border settlement Lili, they were rejoined. The participants laughed and turned towards Estonia. Continuing on their way, the accurately lined up vintage cars and motorcycles attempted to cross the Latvian-Estonian border, but encountered unexpected difficulties. Hundreds of people had gathered at the border and once again demanded freedom for the Baltic states, holding 30-year-old posters of the Baltic Way. And some uniformed border guards appeared from somewhere and blocked the entrance to the Republic of Estonia. Of course, it was just a theatrical show and a reminder of a bygone era. After completing and signing the improvised declaration, each participant effortlessly crossed the border and continued on the Baltic Way tour. Here in the customs zone, the head of the parade changed and Latvia gave priority to the Estonian flag bearers. The journey continued along the picturesque territory of southern Estonia. When passing by roads, seemingly uninhabited places, the participants of the march were met and greeted by the hundreds of blue, white, black flags. Among them were the colors of Lithuania and Latvia. Late in the evening, the convoy of vintage cars reached Viljandi. The festively decorated city welcomed the participants of the march. Unsaked, a popular music group, performed on the stage in the market square while a lot of people watched the displayed antique and classic vehicles. Here, the second day of the tour ended. The third day of the Baltic Way, 20th of August, coincided with an Estonian national holiday. On this day, Estonia's independence was celebrated. On August 20th, 1991, Estonia issued a declaration to restore its independence and separate from the Soviet Union. The morning in Viljandi began with an exhibition of vintage cars in commemoration of Independence Day. The festive holiday event attracted crowds of people. There, speeches and interviews were given to the media, and everyone was enjoying the great day and the great event. It was a pity that the Baltic Way march was on a tight schedule, so when the time came, the participants had to say goodbye to Viljandi and move on, and the road led to Turku and Tallinn. On their way, the convoy of vintage cars stopped and honored the Baltic Way memorial stone in Sarevere. After arriving in Turku, the participants of the march organized a 2-hour exhibition of the vintage cars for the residents and visitors of the town, had fun at the independence celebration, and had dinner at the same time. Again, the participants of the Baltic Way continued on their way according to the schedule. And here it is, Tallinn. The column of vintage cars stopped briefly in the suburbs, waited for those who got left behind, and lined up accurately. The vintage car convoy was then followed by the Tallinn Municipal Police. It should be noted that the volume of traffic in the city is very high, and the police did not always manage to cope with it. To be honest, nothing terrible happened. The historic vehicles entered the city center, the upper part of Tallinn's Old Town on Tumpeia Hill, in large groups. A lot of people had already been waiting for the vintage car convoy here, right next to the Estonian Parliament House. As there was not enough space in the city center to accommodate more than 200 cars, the participants just drove past the Parliament House. The atmosphere was enchanting. The sea of fluttering flags and smiles, the duo of a piano and an opera soloist on the parliamentary balcony created a charming atmosphere, infecting everyone with a good mood.
Но участники, вы видите, они все улыбаются, всем хорошо. Больших, скажи, ремонтов не было на дороге. И народ, который нас принимает, это когда кто-то махнет тебе рукой с флагом, это уже сделает глаза мокрым. Это не могу словами передать этого. Я думаю, все, которые здесь вокруг с нами, литовцы, латышей, все знают, что это значит. Тот раз 30 лет назад это Балтийский путь без войны выиграть.
The capital of Estonia is a big and alive city. It certainly has a place to accommodate many cars and accompanying spectators. After leaving the Old Town, participants of the 30th March of Baltic Way turned towards the nearby modern and contemporary seaplane museum, Lenasudam. The spacious museum square accommodated not only all vehicles of the Baltic Way, but also a dozen additional unregistered local enthusiasts. Thus, the number of participating antique cars increased to nearly 300. During the exhibition, the participants of the tour were not bored. They took the opportunity to visit the Maritime Museum and see the ships standing on the quay. At the end of the final exhibition, all participants on the Baltic Way gathered in front of the Maritime Museum's ship Suurtoll for a historic photo. A stay on the Baltic seacoast was not the end of the road. The hospitable Estonian colleagues invited everyone to the final evening of the tour, which took place at Latsi Rally Park, 30 kilometers from Tallinn, where the symbolic finish of the tour commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way was held. Here, participants were invited to a dinner, awards, and a concert by the legendary Estonian band Appelson. After discussing the details of the tour and sharing their memories, the participants of the Baltic Way agreed with one accord. The first joint Baltic historical event was a great success and will be repeated in 5 years. See you at the Vintage Car Tour, Baltic Way 35.
Atmostas Baltija, atmostas